Excellent, that does sound like you're ready. In which case I'd like to welcome to the stage Edward James Olmos. Give him a big round of applause.
It's been over 7 years since the last time I was here. It was a lot different. The show was not even half the size. This thing has grown immensely. It's one of the biggest shows I've been to. If we could do me a favor and turn the house lights up a little bit so I can see the audience as well as they can see me, I would appreciate it. Also, I don't have a moderator. I'll be speaking to you directly and answering any questions that you might have if you'll step over to that microphone. And the quicker you get over there, the quicker we can get this started. So if anybody has any questions, now's the time to come across and ask me. This is perfect. Thank you for the lights. I can tell you, since no one's standing up over there, that Battlestar Galactica to me was the best usage of television I've ever been a part of in my life. And it was an honor and a privilege to be on that show. I was able to start my career doing Blade Runner. Anybody see Blade Runner? Blade Runner to me was probably one of the most extraordinary experiences. When it came out, we did it back in 1980, 81, we were shooting it. And I think it came out in about 1982. And it cost $40 million. And in that time, that was probably one of the most expensive films ever made. And of course, when it came out, it was a bomb. It was very well received here in England and in Europe, but in the United States, it was not received very well at all. And I think it had to do a lot with what was going on with Harrison Ford at the time. Harrison Ford at that time had just finished doing the 3 largest films ever made in the history of film. He had done Star Wars, he had done Raiders of the Lost Ark, and then he'd done the second Star Wars. So he was an action hero, and when he went into his 4th film, which was Blade Runner, where he got his ass kicked every time he talked to anybody, I think his fan base couldn't take that kind of a character, so they kind of like didn't want to see him do it. Now, it's become one of his best films, thank the Lord. Question number 1, thank you for joining in.
You're very welcome. I have 2 questions. I'm a massive BSG fan, so what I'd like to know is, first of all, what is your favourite BSG moment? And secondly, were you happy with the ending of BSG?
I was very, very, very sad with the ending of BSG. I'll start from there. A lot of people, you know, didn't want the show to end. So that, like most of us, so any ending would not have been satisfying for anybody. I do tell you one thing. How many of you have seen the entire program from beginning to end? Okay. I should say, how many have not seen Battlestar Galactica? How many have not seen Battlestar Galactica? Be honest, raise your hand. So there's a few of us. You've come to the wrong show. Because it's such a spoiler. I mean, I don't know what you're doing in the audience. I don't know if you know anything about watching an episode of television, but once you know the ending, why do you watch the thing? Don't worry about those people, okay. The ending, if you were to whenever you see Battlestar Galactica again, I want you to do yourself a favor. Have Blade Runner with you. And when you see the entire show from beginning to end, you're going to get to the very last episode. You're going to get to the very last moment where Baltar and Six are walking down Times Square in 2008. And Six turns to Baltar and says, "This has happened before, it's going to happen again." And Baltar says, "No, I think this time humanity has learned its lesson." And they turn around and walk down Times Square. As soon as it goes to black, put in Blade Runner. And the year is 2019, and you're gonna get your mind blown. Because you're gonna see me there. Not me, but my genetic structure of GAF. And you're gonna see that it's 2019. It's only like 9 years or 10 years, 11 years after we ended Battlestar, when that takes place, and you'll see what happens to our satellites. They now become replicants, and they're even more intense than they were before. So that's one. And to tell you, the most memorable moment in, God, there's, depending on what you call memorable, okay? Because there was some moments in Battlestar where I just like completely lost it. And I thought it was hysterical and very funny. And then there were moments where they were so tender and so ridiculously emotional that I couldn't forget them if I tried. The most memorable, I think, is probably when I turn around and I look at Rosalind and I see that she's passed when she dies. And because I'm looking out and I'm talking to her about the vista, and I turn to her and I look at her and she's passed. And I never got to say goodbye, and I never got to say, I love you. I never got to, so I put my ring on her finger, and as I went down to kiss her hand, a teardrop falls right on her hand. And we had to do that scene 3 times because when that happened, Mary, playing Rosalind, lost it. She's supposed to be dead, and she starts to cry. So it was very difficult to do that scene. And at the end of the scene, when it was over, that was the very last shot that we did together. It was the very last scene. It was 3 o'clock in the morning inside the Raptor. And when she stood up and walked out of the Raptor, and it was called the Raptor, me and her, it was over, she collapsed. And her son grabbed her as she was coming out of the Raptor, and she collapsed into his arms. It was very emotional and very strong. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But that's one of the experiences I remember the most. Also, do you remember when I break the ship? That was a big one. Most of you don't know what I'm talking about, but there was a moment in time when Starbuck dies, and I learned that she's dead, and I'm working on my model that I was always working on. And right at that moment, they tell me that she's been killed, and I crush and destroy the model. Well, they didn't tell me that it was a rare antique. I turned to them and I said, what the hell did you put it in the scene for? Are you kidding me? Come on, give me a break. I mean, I'm learning that one of my closest and dearest loves of my life, as my daughter, had just been killed. And you have this thing in front of me, and you don't expect me like to go nuts. So anyway, that was a real disaster. Very memorable. Question, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm a huge Battlestar Galactica fan too, so thanks for that series. It's wonderful. And what's your take on why so much sci-fi views the future so negatively? It's going to be robots that kill us. It's zombies because of a cancer drug going wrong. It's an asteroid. Why does so much sci-fi have such a negative view of the future?
Well, obviously, either you're not living it right now, so you're not taking notes. But I think technology is coming. It's going, singularity is near. And I think that a lot of the negativity that we feel are things that we really appreciate and enjoy, or else we wouldn't watch them. It's like I did Dexter, the 6th season. Anybody see that? You guys are sick. You guys are the sickest people I know. There's a program for you. All right, you want a program of negativity? I tell you, if it wasn't for the fact that I was never there, spoiler, I was never there. I had been dead 4.5 years before the period starts that I'm supposed to be there. I'm stuck in a refrigerator, a cooler, but you don't find that out until the end. But I could not have done that show. That show was the weirdest show I've ever been around in my life. I mean, can you imagine every day you get up and you go in front of you go onto the set and there's Michael Hall, Dexter walking around, and Dexter is being Dexter all the time. I mean, he's never like Michael Hall. Hi, how are you? He's always just inside of his character. It was creepy. That guy is very creepy. And the more he got into it, the creepier he got. So I was on the sixth season, so he was already nuts. Man, I notice how you haven't seen him around lately? No idea what he's going to do next. Question, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a big BSG fan. I'm also Shield. As you did the remake of BSG, if you could do any show as a remake and be in it and act in it, what would you pick and who?
Oh my goodness. Clark Gable in Gone with the Wind. Rhett Butler. Frankly, Scarlett, I don't give a damn.
Are we ready for our next guest?
Question.
Hi Edward, nice to see you, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
I wanted to go back to Blade Runner for a moment, if that's okay. I had two questions. Number one, I'd heard that Harrison Ford thought that the shooting process on that film was quite unpleasant, and I was wondering if you felt the same way.
No, just the opposite. I had probably one of the finest experiences I've ever had in filmmaking, to this day. Yeah, he had a hard time with it. Remember, he had worked with Lucas and Spielberg in the biggest films the world had ever seen, and he was at that moment in time, the largest box office hero artist in the history of film. His movies had made more money than any of the movies in the history of film. Each one made more than the one before it. So for 3 consecutive years and 3 consecutive motion pictures, his movies had gone through the roof. And then he got involved with Ridley. And Ridley had a different style. Much more laid back, did not push, and completely annihilated his character. You have to remember, in every single, go back and watch Blade Runner. Every single time he faced somebody, he got his ass kicked. Even the women beat the shit out of him. So you think that he was feeling good about making this movie? I don't think so.
He never got punched by a woman, did he?
No, I mean, Indy never got hit by a woman, and I mean, if he did, he'd laugh about it and go, ha ha ha. But in this case, he got his ass kicked.
Actually, I've just been given a correction. He did get hit by a woman.
Yeah, she did. And he laughed about it. You know, it was no big deal. He couldn't do that in Blade Runner.
So the second question was, can you actually make those little origami unicorns or not?
Now, I never made the unicorn. I made the chicken, but then it was enhanced. And I made the stick man. Those two I did make. And then when I went to see the movie, I saw the unicorn. I had no idea the unicorn. No one knew that Deckard was a replicant. No one. I don't know when Ridley found out that he was. All I know is that I got to the end of the movie and I said, holy shit. No, he was a replicant. You know, and I mean, it was crazy. And of course, Harrison really hated the movie when he found that out. It was just really hard for him. But now he's grown to, I think, to really appreciate it a lot. I think that he's realized that Star Wars, Raiders, and all of these great films that he made don't stand and hold water as well as Blade Runner does. Blade Runner is arguably the best, if not the best, one of the best science fiction movies ever made in the history of film.
Hi there.
Hello.
So, first of all, I'd like to say you were my absolute heroes. Thank you so much for being here. My first question to you, when you landed the role of William Adama in Battlestar Galactica, What process did you go through to get into the mind of that character?
You know, this probably was one of the most shocking experiences I've had, because I didn't want to do, I was busy doing my work, and if you've seen any of my other work, you notice that I really don't do commercial kind of films. I never have. I did Blade Runner, but that really wasn't a commercial film. That was an artistic film. Even when we were making it, we knew it from the get-go. But we also knew that it could be commercial because of the subject matter. But Stand and Deliver, a film that I made, American Me, another film that I made, Selena, you know, My Family, really culturally diverse kind of films. And so when they asked me to do Battlestar, I had never even seen the original. And the reason I hadn't seen it is because I was doing theater at the time. I was doing a play that rocked the United States of America, actually rocked the world. The theatrical world was actually moved to a new understanding level by a play called Zoot Suit. And I played a character called El Pachuco. And it's been hailed as one of the 3 definitive characters ever to arise on the American stage in the history of American theater. Along with Stanley Kowalski, Willie Loman is El Pachuco. Those are the 3 definitive characters ever to arise on the American stage. Not set by me, but set by the American Theater Wing, which give out the Tonys and take care of theater, archiving theater in the United States. That being said, I was doing that play in 1978. I did it until 1981. So I didn't watch much television. We do theater, and we do 8 shows a week, and you have maybe Monday nights off. That's the only night you have off. The rest of the time you work it. Start at 5:30 in the afternoon, and you go until 11 o'clock at night, every night, 6 days a week. So I never watched Battlestar. But I'd heard about it, and but I had not seen it. So when they offered me the opportunity to do Battlestar, I said, thank you very much, but no thank you. I had been offered the opportunity to do Star Trek when Kirk was killed. They asked me to take over the next show and be the next captain of the Enterprise. And I said, no thank you, but no thank you, because I was working on my own movies and my own things. And, I've turned down more things than I've actually accepted. I'm better known for the things that I've said no to than I am for the things that I've done, because most of you have not seen the things that I've done. And only because of the fact that they're films that don't quite reach the mass levels. But in time they do, like Stand and Deliver. How many of you have seen Stand and Deliver? There you go. In the United States of America, Stand and Deliver, story about a school teacher, is the single most viewed film of any film ever made in the world, in the United States of America. Why? Because tens of thousands of teachers use it every year and have for the last 30 years in their classrooms. Just like they use Catcher in the Rye, or they use great literature, that every year in the 8th grade or the 9th grade or 10th grade, you get a certain thing that you have to read in the history books. You have to understand certain things. Well, in schools across America, they have to see Stand and Deliver. And so millions upon millions upon millions of kids have seen that movie every year. So over 30 years, not even Gone with the Wind could keep up with it. That being said, basically now with the whole understanding of Battlestar, when I took on the responsibility, it was only because someone in my office, in my family, said to me, read the first 3 pages. Oh, okay, I'll do that. So I read the first 3 pages. It wasn't the script. It was kind of like a way of looking at the way you were going to read the script and the way it was going to be done. It was a prologue, and it was most extraordinary commitment that Ron Moore, the person who really imagined the remake of Battlestar, had written on how to read and what was going to be happening with Battlestar. I read the first 3 pages, I couldn't stop. Brilliant piece of writing. And when I turned the page to page 1 and I started to read it, and I started I started to see the way it was written. I said, oh my God, this thing is incredible. So I had a meeting with Ron Moore, David Icke, and Michael Ryman. And we ended up meeting, and I just said one thing to them. I said, the first creature that I see coming from the Black Lagoon, or some kind of monster in another planet, from another, universe, it just comes into our world, and it becomes like a two-mouthed, four-eyed, three-eared creature. I'm going to faint on camera, and you're gonna have to write in, Commander Adama died of a heart attack. And so I put that into my contract. No creatures from the Black Lagoon allowed. No, jellyfish type things and weird things coming in. So that was the only condition I said. I really wanted to have the integrity of Blade Runner. If it does not have the integrity of Blade Runner, I do not want to take any part of this, because I don't like to be facing something that is a creature that looks weird and I gotta fight it. And so I said, that isn't what I want to do. What I want to spend my time doing is trying to figure out who we are as human beings. And that's what I've been doing with all my work. And so they said, don't worry, Ed, that's why we asked for you. And I said, well, that's why I'm sitting here, because I read what you guys are doing, and it's unbelievable. And from that moment on, history was made. Because like I said, when I really started, I don't think that there's been, I know for me, there's never been a more extraordinary usage of television that I've ever been a part of. And I've been a part of a lot of shows that have been very, very good, including, West Wing and NYPD Blue, quite a few of the major pieces of work that have been done for television. So, whatever that is, tell them I'm not here. Question, go ahead.
I'm similar to those. Does it make you sad that with all the events that are happening in Southern Europe today, that it shows you relevant was when it was made, about people not having a home, finding themselves cast adrift in desperate circumstances?
I didn't catch all of that. You kind of...
Sorry, with all the events happening in Southern Europe, does it make you sad that the show is even more relevant today than it was when it was made?
Yeah, it was back to the question that was asked just a little while ago. Why is it so, dark, and why is it so pessimistic, using science fiction, and why is it that way? Two things. One, I was kind of joking around, but it was kind of serious too. We're into a very difficult time. I said it to somebody that was sitting there signing an autograph. I said, one of the most interesting things, if there was a Holocaust, nuclear Holocaust, on the planet, and you had seen the show, Battlestar Galactica, you would be able to try to understand how to live forward. But if you hadn't seen this show, the Holocaust would wipe you out. If you lost every single person you know, and you were the only one left, and you hadn't seen the show, you'd probably commit suicide. Say, what am I going to live for? I don't have an earth, there's nothing to live for, I can't leave, I can't move on forward. But if you had seen Battlestar Galactica, you might have a different perspective on what the responsibility is for us as human beings to go on and move forward. So to answer your question lightly, yeah, it's kind of depressing, because technology is getting to the point of where it can wipe us out, and it has for a long time, since the 50s actually, but now even more so. Because the biggest understanding that I have right now has been that we are building bases for receiving all the information, big, huge computers, it's about 5 or 6 of them on the planet, and we're connecting them. How far is it going to be? How long do we have to wait before they start talking to themselves without us? That's the question. When are they going to lock in one day and start to do work on their own without being programmed. Will they ever reach that level? I say they will. At that moment, since all of our nuclear situation is structured around using computers, inevitably, for a little bit of a problem, especially when they start talking to each other. And that, in essence, is where we're going with our technology. So as far as I'm concerned, we have a lot to really try to understand in the future. I, for one, enjoy my technology, but I, for one, also realize that we are living under Big Brother now more than ever before. They know exactly what I say, they know what I do, and you say, oh, come on, are you that paranoid? No, I'm not. I just know what they're doing now. It's very simple for them to get every single person's usage of their equipment and program it into a computer. It's ones and zeros, and they just put it there. That doesn't mean they're going to come up to you and say, we were checking you out. No, because you're an IP number. Unless you give them a reason, they're not going to go looking for you. But the day that you give them a reason, for whatever reason, that they might choose, the IRS, in my case, in the United States of America, they will have all the information on you. And they have it. It's just all pushed over there. Everything that I say on my laptop, everything I say on my telephone is recorded and kept. So that's the world we live in today. Go ahead.
I just started watching Battlestar like last month, and that was because I was watching Major Crimes with Mary, and my question is, Jimmy Butler has recently been on the show as a guest star, and I was wondering if if someone asked you to be a guest star for Major Crimes, would you say yes?
Yes. Matter of fact, I was so pissed off at them when they didn't invite me to be her husband, even though the guys, wouldn't they get Behringer? They got somebody, I think it's Tom Behringer. It is, right? Yeah. But yeah, I would love to do a show with her. I'd love to do anything with her. The woman is phenomenal. She's been a very close and dear friend. And I must say that we relate a lot to each other. Matter of fact, the entire cast has stayed connected over the last 8 years since we finished the show. And I'm very proud of it. Matter of fact, Jamie staying and living with me at my home in Los Angeles because he just moved to France with his family. So by moving to France, anytime he goes to the United States, in Los Angeles, he stays with me. Michael Hogan, who lives in Canada, whenever he comes into LA, he stays with me. James Callis, Baltar, he stayed like 8 months with me until he bought a house about 3 blocks away. So we're pretty close. And Michael Trucco and Sadie, Katie Sackhoff and Trisha, we get together a lot, and it's a lot of fun. They're the best friends I have. And the only friends that I've kept in respects of the work that I've done in this business in the last 45 years. Next.
Hi. Firstly, I would say thanks for coming out. It's great to see you. I have a question sort of about when you were starting to film Battlestar Galactica and going through. When did you find out who was actually a Cylon? And if it was only sort of later on, did you have your suspicions before that point?
When we started the show, we did not know anything about Cylons, and then we found out about Cylons, and we started to read about them as the script started to materialize. We did not know that Boomer was a Cylon until the second episode, and we read the second script. So every script had its information that was not let out to anybody, including us. But I will say that towards when the final 5, they were starting to talk about the final 5, we all kind of got a little bit concerned. And needless to say, the one who got the most concerned was the XO. The commander had a really hard time with it. Michael Hogan, the actor, refused to accept it. He was so pissed off, I can't even tell you. He did not want to be a Cylon, no matter what they said. He said, I'm sorry, man, I'm not a Cylon. I'm just not a Cylon. You're gonna have to face the reality, I'm not. And so it took everything for them. And so if you look at the program and you start to watch his character and the craziness that starts to happen to him, he manifested that, and it was all truth. He hated being a Cylon. And then when he found out what it meant, he loved it. He loved it. He became like, oh my God. When we killed Kate Vernon, his wife, Ellen, when we killed her, none of us knew that she was a Cylon. She didn't know she was a Cylon. She dies on the screen. She drinks the poison. She's dead. And we all cried when she left the show. Little did we know she'd be back like 3 or 4 episodes later as one of the, she's the mother of all the Cylons. And Hogan's character, you know, was the father. He was the man who created all the Cylons. So between both of them, they were the creators of the Cylons. And so when he found that out, he was the happiest man alive. He couldn't believe it. Question?
Thank you. Hi. Big fan.
Thank you.
Today. My question is kind of connected to the previous one. If you had learned that Bill was going to be a Cylon, would you have played the character any differently?
I don't think you would. That was the whole idea. The same thing with the replicants. You know, Harrison, when he was pissed off about it, he said he didn't know. And you know, Ridley said that you wouldn't have known. That was the whole idea. You really didn't know. And the ones that did know came back to haunt us. They wanted longer lives. And that was their default. And you know, Batty and all of them, the different Leon and all of them, they came back for one reason. They wanted to live longer than 4.5 years. And so, in the case of Cylons, you didn't really know, and then when you did find out, it was fantastic. You know, then you were you could never die. It was a nice world to live in. So basically, if I was to be known as, if I had found out that I was a Cylon, I would have been very happy, to be honest with you, because that means I would have been helping humanity, you know, save itself. But and they did. That's one of the reasons we were invited to the UN. Did any of you see when they brought us to the UN? Anybody see the UN? Battlestar at the United Nations? Do yourself a favor. Go online, YouTube, and put Battlestar Galactica at the United Nations. The year is 2009. We are invited to participate in the only time that they've ever asked a television show to ever come in and speak to the entire planet at the United Nations. And it's mind-blowing. 3 hours we sat there. Mary, myself, Ron Moore, and David Icke. And the moderator was Whoopi Goldberg. And you'd say, oh my God, what a strange group. Yes. And there was not one chair that was open. It was jam-packed. You should take a look at it. There was press from all over the world. And the reason that they came and the reason that they wanted us there is because we talked about certain things in the show that they, the UN, do every day and that they work with every day. And they found, by looking at the show, that they found themselves saying, yeah, that's the kind of work that we have to do. The number one job that they have to do is reconciliation. They're trying to reconcile the differences on the planet. The Jews, Palestinians, you know, the unbelievable amount of strife and warfare that there is on this planet right now. The UN tries to bring about an understanding between the different nations, warring nations, and try to find a way of reconciling their differences. Well, the biggest reconciliation that's ever been shown in the history of film has been between the Cylons and the humans. They had to reconcile with one another in order for humanity and for the Cylons to be able to exist. And so that, with that, they would show 7 to 8 minutes of our program. And then what they would do is that the head of the executive director of that particular subject matter, reconciliation, would speak for about 20 minutes. And then they would open up to have anybody ask either us or the UN questions. So that's what happens. And if you want to do yourself a favor, you should definitely get up and watch that. It's mind-blowing. We said some quite interesting things that changed the course of a lot of people's lives on the planet at that time in 2009. You'll see what I mean if you watch the show, if you watch it. Hello.
I think part of what makes Battlestar work is that it's a show of deeply flawed characters, and I really love that about the show. But there is sort of one relationship that's always seemed a bit strange to me, more so than the others. Could you give me some insight into why Admiral Adama has so much faith in Saul? Perhaps not unwarranted, but on paper he is a very deeply disturbed man, and he's often, especially in the earlier seasons, he breaks down quite a lot. But Admiral Adama was always there, just...
Yeah, you have to go back 40 years when they met, when they were young kids, and they were fighter pilots. And if you watch Blood and Chrome, you start to learn about what life was like when I was 20, and Ty was a little younger than I was at the time. And if you go back to there, then you realize why the relationship was so strong that when you start the episodes and when you started the show, he's an alcoholic, and he has been for a while. But I carried him with me because I really appreciated the years that he had devoted and what got him to be an alcoholic. I understood it. And so I took care of him. And we were a museum. It was over for us. Our time left was over. We were being put out into the world of traveling from planet to planet as a museum for children to come on board to see what life was like, you know, back in the old days, in the Battlestar days. And so that's why I had such a strong understanding with him. And it turns out that as he became to understand himself better, I lost him. That was never written, but I brought that into play. I brought in the fact that where Adama went to, and when he became an officer himself and used pills and was trying to escape the realities of what the world was like for him, the writers of the show and the network were going, what the hell's going on? Because here's our hero, Adama, and he was on the ground throwing up and, you know, completely bombed out of his mind. If you start to look, he's always drinking. You know, about halfway through the show, season 3, he's like a strong alcoholic. By season 4, forget it, man. The guy is just completely wiped out. He can't put 2 words together. And that, I had never played a character that went that far, and that they allowed me to play. And then he comes back, and he leads the charge to the end. And so it was really a very strong commitment to understanding the situation we were dealing with. And that situation, believe it or not, was highly praised by commanding officers in the military in the United States of America. I had more people, more admirals, more commanders, more generals relating to me and getting in touch with me to say thank you for allowing them to experience what they were going through that they couldn't allow anybody else to see. They felt like, whoa, I guess I'm not, you know, doing anything that I shouldn't be doing, because I can't imagine being a commanding officer and sending in 3,000 young men and women into battle when only 500 come back, and feel that you can get up the next morning and say, well, that was pretty good. We saved 500. And you lose 2,500 people, and they wipe you out, and you didn't win the mountain. You know, it's just like, what are you talking about? But at the same time, When we showed it, they were so grateful because no one had ever shown that. When you show that kind of descent, you usually mean to say that the guy burned out and died. He didn't come back. Namely, try to figure out how many people have gone through that. Start off very strong, completely demoralized, completely lose all their self-respect, self-esteem, self-worth, and then hit the bottom of the skids, and then still are able to pick themselves up and elevate themselves and move on to the end with everybody going, yeah, you did it. Very seldom do you ever see that. I had never seen it in a show. I didn't think they would let me do it, but I was directing. So if you look at the ones that are really bad, where he's like working on the bathroom, when he starts to clean his own bathroom, and he's in his blue dress uniform, and he's redecorating his bathroom, and oh my God, they went nuts. And I'm ended up on the ground, I'm laying there, my son, Jamie, is going to be here tomorrow, and he's on the ground, he's holding my hand, and I'm completely been throwing up. Woo! Very emotional stuff. But thank you for the question.
Hi. Actually, kind of follow on from that one about relationship with Saul. The Admiral obviously had many relationships with different characters, Starbuck, Apollo, ship itself. Which of those relationships was your favourite, either as the character or as an actor portray those?
You know, I'll have to say that the entire experience was my favorite. I don't think that there's a day that goes by that I don't recall something or that I don't remember it. As far as I'm concerned, it happened, and I was there, and I went through it. Just as much as many of you who have taken the experience and have gone even further by seeing it more than once, so maybe seen it 4 or 5. How many people have seen it more than once? How many have seen it 3 times? 4, 5, 6, 7. Get a load of this. One young woman came up to me and she says, I saw the entire, all 88 hours in 4 days. So if you watched Portlandia, if you haven't seen Portlandia, go online and watch that too. Just YouTube it. But they go through the, you know, when people find it, and then they have all the elements there. They have all the DVDs, and then they start to watch 1 hour of it, you know, 1 episode, and they go, wow, that's just 1 hour. Okay. And then you're like 4 hours later, they're eating, they can't even go to the bathroom, and, you know, and it's crazy. Some people, how many of you saw the show in 8 days? That was the record. There's about 3 or 4 of you who've done it. But that was the record. 8 days was the quickest way they had done it. All right, that's a lot of hours watching every day and doing nothing else really. But 4 days, figured out. How long did she sleep? How much time did she give herself to eat? You know, did she ever stop watching it? No, you can't. But anyway, to me the whole show was a blessing. And I saw it from the beginning to the end. I've seen it quite a few times. Anytime somebody hasn't seen it and comes over, let me sit down. Let's watch this. Any reason I have to watch it, I'll watch it. And I gotta tell you, I'm very, very proud of the work that we did in it, but I'm really overwhelmed with the clarity of the characters. Starbucks, you know, everybody, Duella, you know. I can't even begin to tell you, there wasn't a character in there that didn't become a truth in every perspective, even if they only had a small role. You know, all I can tell you is I'm very proud of the piece of work that we did. Go ahead.
First of all, I'm a huge fan of Battlestar Galactica and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I actually had a question about what you said before, that when you did Battlestar Galactica, you didn't want monsters or aliens. Can I ask why you chose to do Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? What drew you to the role despite the fact that there are superheroes and monsters and aliens?
It was the going into that world, the Marvel world, and what they offered me was to be the real S.H.I.E.L.D. I said, whoa, okay. So I am the real S.H.I.E.L.D., and that's why they had to get rid of me. Spoiler! If you haven't seen it, I don't make it. But that was the reason, because the position that they asked me to play on the show was quite extraordinary, and they asked me to do this as a favor to them and to those guys who are incredible. They're writing the movies, they're taking care of the franchise, and so it connects. The television was connecting with the films, and I was always hoping that I'd make it to the films, but it didn't work, man. I got myself, first I was turned into stone, and then they blew the whole building up that I was in. They got rid of all my DNA. I'm not coming back. Question?
Hi Edward, how's it going? I'm Nathan, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure.
Blade Runner is one of my favourite films, and I like to think everyone in that movie is in fact a replicant now. You sort of had memory implants in that movie?
Did I have memories of what?
Memory implants in that movie?
Memory enhancement?
That's the one, yeah.
Wow. God, no. I was the only Blade Runner in the movie.
Right, yeah, so you were there more or less tracking Deckard.
Yeah, taking care of him until I could get rid of him. But he was the only one that could take care of the other guys, because he was an advanced model. So, in essence, that's what that's what I found out after I did the show, by the way. Like I said, I didn't know at the time who I was, and neither did Deckard. So, I knew that I was a Blade Runner because I was the guy taking him around and was part of the police department. But no, I was not anything special, other than that I came from Adama, who was on the earth 200,000 years before I was born. But that was it.
And they've announced Blade Runner 2 earlier this year with Harrison Ford and Ryan Gosling. I was just wondering if you know, in fact, any rumours of you being in the movie?
If I'm going to be invited to be in the film?
Yeah.
I haven't been invited yet. I would love to be invited.
I'll tell you what, I'll start the Facebook fan page, alright?
Go for it, man.
So make it a good one.
Pardon?
One last question, I'm afraid, so this will have to be the last one.
That went too fast, buddy.
I'm nervous now. Last question. I expect so it's good. Considering what happened with the Pegasus, with the Admiral of the Pegasus, if the fleet found some other ship with someone with higher status than Admiral William Adama, you will follow him or not?
Well, I would have to. Yeah, under commanding, well, that's what happened in Pegasus.
Yeah.
I had to follow Michelle. She was the admiral.
Yeah.
And she almost took us down to the wire too. It was quite an experience.
The question is precisely that. Knowing what happened after the Pegasus, William Adama still following the rules, or after that?
Good question. No. He was not following the rules anymore. There were no rules. He accepted the understanding between the separation of church and state. In other words, the military and the politics of living. Matter of fact, really an incredible thing happened during the Ferguson situation in the United States of America, where a young man was killed. One of my quotes came out and went viral. It was a quote that I'm paraphrasing because I can't quite remember exactly how I said it on the show, but it said, police are there to serve and protect the people. Military is there to fight the enemy. When the military become the police, people become the enemy. That went viral. And to this day, I think that's something in the United States that we're really looking at very strongly, because every time we've had anything to do with what's going on there is a militarization of the police department that has become overwhelming. It's like, whoa, Obama actually gave billions of dollars worth of military material, jeeps, tanks, weapons, all kinds of night, all kinds of stuff that he gave to police departments all over the country. And I said, wow, that's nice, they would do that. Except that now when they come out, if you ever watch our police departments come out to deal with subject matters of any kind of disturbances, they look like the Army. They even they had to change, some people had to go back and say, we've got to take them out of the dark suits guys, you know, the military looking hardware that they would be wearing as well as using. So, but yeah, no, Adama by the end, when he was crashing Battlestar into the Cylon's main base, there was no more rules. He would not have been governed by anything or anybody. It was over. Humanity was done. So he was going for the gusto and going to take it out on his own terms. So, yeah, I gave it up to Pegasus, but that was it. That was the last time. And never. Matter of fact, I was then given I was made an admiral right after that situation happened. So I became commanding officer of all military in the universe. So I didn't have to worry about anybody else. Thank you guys so much for your kindness, your respect. I'll be over here answering any questions. One of the things I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm used to having people just come up and talk. You don't have to buy a thing. Just come over to say hello. I don't know why, but they've chosen to only let people into the area if you had a ticket. I'm sorry about that, and if that continues to happen, then I'm going to go when I have no line, right to the end of the court, and I'll be standing there, and you guys can come over and ask me any questions that you'd like. Thank you, guys. I say one thing to you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm so thankful